Please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Let's get straight to the top story this evening. A day after the Prime Minister defended his government's handling of the economy, some of the top leaders of India Inc. have reposed their faith in the India growth story. CNBC TV18 has exclusive access to the biggest economic summit in India hosted by the World Economic Forum. From Bharti Airtel Sunil Mittal to Adi Godrej to Mastercard's Ajay Banga, the overwhelming sentiment is this: the current slowdown could just be a short-term blip and the fundamentals of the economy remain strong, with growth potential still intact.
Well, I always say 6 to 7% growth in any place in the world would be a cause for a great deal of jealousy, and I think India should be happy. So I think we are very fortunate as a nation that is still growing at a good momentum. Yes, we would like to be at 8, 9%, but let's not lose hope just because we have had a bit of a dip.
So speaking of impetus to growth, the RBI is maintaining a status quo position. The commentary is that even for the coming quarters, that's the position they'll maintain. Just your sense, sir.
Well, I think it was expected that the rates are not going to go down in a hurry. And everybody will push RBI, and eventually they'll have to balance out inflation, economic growth, and the needs of the industry. So I'm hopeful.
At the IMC, you mentioned that the industry is undertaking a massive investment. 50,000-60,000 crores is the figure you cited. Yeah. Will that be enough, sir, for meeting the 2020 target for 5G?
Yeah, 2020, 5G is just a new technological box which has to go.
Sure,
so that's not the...
But sir, TARS, fiber, will that be enough?
Yeah, a lot of work is going on.
The problem was that the GDP growth rate was a low 5.7% in the April-June quarter. In my view, most of it was due to low GDP growth in the month of June. June was the month before the introduction of the GST on the 1st of July. And because many of the GST rates on manufactured products were lower than the earlier cumulative tax rates, there was destocking. So most of the clearance took place after July 1st. Okay. I expect the GDP growth rate will catch up in the July-September quarter, and it will be very good in the second half of the year.
I think you have to take this debate beyond a quarter here or there, and you've got to look at where India has come from. In the last decade and two, India's GDP has multiplied 10 times. Its foreign exchange reserves have multiplied 50 times. And FDI is at the highest for any country in the world. I think that's getting lost in a quarter here or a quarter there. And I would not allow that to be the end result of all that's going on.
So half glass full?
Yeah, in fact, that's my point, that I would be optimistic about where the Indian economy is going. The Indian economy has so many factors working for it. Yes, there are structural things that need to change. Those are the kind of things that the Prime Minister was talking about. The kind of reforms he's pushed through in 3 years are more than happened in the prior some years. Now, to be clear, reform started with the prior government. This is not a political situation. I think India and its citizenry and its polity is ready for reform and is pushing reform and is actually picking up the pace of reform over the last few years. Reform, by the nature of the word, will be disruptive. It will be challenging. Having the patience and the perseverance to pursue reform for the right reasons is what I think the Prime Minister is trying to push for.
I'm greatly heartened by the recent announcement that the Prime Minister has made, which is he is aware of the economic situation and he is going to do something on growth over there. And that is something that companies like ours depend on hugely, is to see whether government spending can increase, what is it that can be done to bring back demand into the system. Having said that, it need not only be CapEx. There could be a lot of OpEx. And with our digital offerings, we are now trying to bring solutions to our customers which will help make them much more competitive, even in an environment which is difficult at the moment.
With the passage of time, there will be a settling into GST that will be better. So if I look at it from that perspective, certainly the next this quarter, which has started last quarter and first quarter, I should see signs of progressive improvement that will happen as far as the overall industry itself is concerned.
I think, if the economy is reasonable, inflation is under control, and we don't have any macro financial issues, I think one should be optimistic that there would be rate cuts to give a further spurt to the growth of the economy. There is a general consensus that it will be somewhere closer to 7%, whether it's a little less than 7 or a little more than 7. It's a matter of how the next few months and how this festival season generates demand and consumption in all sectors. But I think overall the numbers are looking good.
See, the government has been very keen that the macroeconomic stability should not be disturbed. That's why the fiscal deficit targets have been adhered to. Despite the temptations, government has not taken the easy path of trying to relax the fiscal deficit target. Our current account deficit is within much lower than what it has been in the many previous years. You know, you look at the inflation rates are very reasonable, much within the limit that RBI has set for itself. So the macro, you look at the foreign exchange reserves and so on and so forth. I think we are doing extremely well because we are aware that while we try to grow our economy, we must have our macroeconomic situation in place. So I don't think any compromise is being done there as well. We are not trying to get short-term fixes here. We are looking at medium and long-term.
Now, while there is optimism on recovery, the main concern is the short-term blip due to GST. Many CEOs claim that there are still teething troubles and operational issues that continue to dog the landmark tax reform. In fact, some CEOs even said that their supply chain have been disrupted altogether. On the other hand, they are also hopeful that these niggles are only transitory and GST has the potential to lift economic growth.
Rates, it's a structure. There is a rate, it's defined, it subsumes a lot of taxes that you otherwise were paying. There's a single rate of tax. So I think, you know, from a efficiency point of view and from an implementation point of view, it is very good. Now, GST is a complex process in terms of getting it going because, you know, you have to file the returns, you have to get your refunds, you have to get all these things going. So I think rather than the rates, is the IT process behind it or the system process behind it that really needs attention.
So on the GST, there's been a mixed bag. Initially, there was a slowdown. I think a lot of our supply chain is still struggling because of either unpreparedness themselves or part of the other issues that are linked to it. So there is a slowdown as a result of the GST. In some areas, it has begun to pick up again. Overall, I think this is a short-term adjustment that will take place, and I expect it to pick up over a period of time. It is not as slow as it was when the GST was first introduced.
So I must say that since the early part of July, when we had initially some settling in issues, August was certainly better, and September also has been reasonably good as far as settling into the GST regime is concerned. There are still a few operational issues that are being ironed out. I think by and large, it has been a fairly encouraging exercise and settling in as far as Nestle is concerned.
People in digital world are the cross-border world. For us, India remains one in our digital world. For us, a person in Uttar Pradesh equal to the person in Delhi, equal to the person in Gurgaon, which is Haryana. So we as a digital world have the most to gain on GST, if you ask me, because of the border crossing, that digital crossing that has been done. It did get costly implementation in time, effort, but at the same time that reward is coming there. Now at least for our platforms, it's been one platform, so it's good. I mean, people like us are the champions of GST.
Okay, and here's another exclusive. A shift towards a digital economy is natural. That's the word coming in from Railway Minister Piyush Goyal. An exclusive interview with CNBC TV18 Shireen Bhan. The minister also added that the government will not forcefully lead people to go digital. He also talked about the key lessons from the demonetization exercise. Here's an excerpt.
The country over a period of time had become too used to cash. I think the good big thing that happened was the country is now seriously moving gradually to a digital economy. In terms of other learnings, I think traceability of cash, so just allowing banks to give any amount of cash to any and everybody who wants to withdraw it may not always necessarily be good. It also causes economy moving from a formal economy to an informal economy. So I think some amount of check and balance on where the money is going, what's happening with large amounts of currency is good. The Prime Minister yesterday spoke about how the cash to GDP ratio has improved from 12 to 9 in a growing economy, which means the currency has significantly reduced in the system.
When Kenneth Rogoff was here in July and we spoke with him about demonetization and the lessons from demonetization, he was very clear that he doesn't believe in going cashless, but what he did seem to suggest is that you should have regulation to bring down the use of cash. Now, we've seen several recommendations, whether it's the SIT saying that there should be a cap on withdrawals and so on and so forth. From an idea or a vision as far as regulating the use of cash is concerned, what can we see?
We have no plans to really focus on regulation as much as on persuasion. And my own sense is that is what works well with the people and will give us faster and better results. I don't think we need to regulate that. I think what we need to do is only incentivize, like we did with the income tax for digital transactions, B2B. Going forward, the government is looking at different ways to encourage people to transact digitally.
So, Mr. Goyal, you said that more regulation is clearly not on the government's agenda at this point in time. You would like to use persuasion to get people to move to digital transactions. Let me also then ask you about what the future...
It was stupid if anybody didn't understand the basic logic.
We understood the logic of that then, but I'm saying now, what is the thinking as far as high denomination notes are concerned?
I don't know. That's something which is well beyond my pay grade. But I'm sure not too many people here are...
Let me ask you for your point of view personally, sir.
I don't think many people here are carrying too many high denomination notes these days. That's passé. We all use digital means to transact.